Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar.
Good morning.
Good morning, Robert.
See some familiar faces already.
Just let people come in here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, welcome. We go through housekeeping here. Probably can start there. All right. Well, as people are coming in, good morning. Welcome to our webinar today. And just a few housekeeping items. Welcome to our webinar, as I said. Thank you for joining. And just want to go through, everyone is muted upon entry. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please add them in the Q&A section in the Teams webinar. And at the end of the presentation, we'll be addressing those questions. I am Lisa Oberg. I am a customer success manager here at Crestwood. I bring about 18 years in the software industry, from Microsoft to Acumatica and everything in between. So, and Robert Sternberg is our director of Acumatica services. He also brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in financials, distribution, manufacturing, and a lot more. And he brings all that knowledge to you today. So with that, we're going to talk about delivering customer-focused orders and look at customer feedback strategies, Acumatica order management tools, and tracking for customer success or satisfaction and success. But with that, we will kick it off. Robert, I'll let you take it away.
Fantastic. Lisa, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Well, I figured we'd get started on today's session with two quotes. The first is by Peter Drucker, and it says, "What gets measured gets managed." And it's a fantastic quote. And within 10 years, VF Ridgway, which is our quote on the bottom portion of the screen, said, "Not everything that matters can be measured, and not everything that we can measure matters." So those are two awesome areas to balance throughout today's session as we work our way through what we can do to better serve our customers during the order management and fulfillment process. So today we're going to talk about three things. First, what to track and how do we know what to track? Corrective action, so that way we can have better customer outcomes on our orders. And then preventive action, so that way we can be a better organization in the long run. You can see a play on the CAPA process from the manufacturing side. That's definitely intentional, and it's a great way to look at this process and drive your business forward. So the first thing I want to talk about is customer feedback strategies. How do we know as an organization what to track to improve our customer outcomes? And there are many ways to do this, but today I want to break it into two primary categories. The first is report embedded links, and the second is post-activity surveys. And each has their advantages. So let's talk with report embedded links. And in Acumatica, reports can be anything from a customer statement to an invoice, maybe even a shipment. But these are interactions that are already taking place with our customers. They're ingesting information that we provide and taking some action with it already. So the first benefit of a report embedded link is that it's right in the work stream for our customers. When they receive an invoice from us at the bottom, you might have seen this used in the past that says, please leave us a review. That's a way to interact and gain feedback from our customers. It could say, click on this link and fill out a survey. And that's really what we're focusing on in this report embedded links area. The second benefit is the feedback is specific to a process. And that's important for deciding which strategy you're going to use here, because we're going to embed this in, let's focus on maybe the shipment work stream. So they're getting a shipment confirmation, and inside of that shipment confirmation, we're immediately saying, provide us feedback. The feedback is going to be inherent to that process. They're going to be focused on that experience, which leads us to the third benefit of this approach, which is real-time reactions and feedback. So if we focus on that shipment area, we're likely going to get feedback about the shipment, but not about any of our other interactions with our customer. How is the ordering process? How is the invoicing and payment process? When we use report embedded links, they're going to be more focused on the source document. If we look towards the bottom portion of this screen, you're seeing just an example URL. This is going to be extremely important in just a few slides when I talk about best practices. When we're looking at report embedded links, Acumatica has the ability to encode information inside of the URL that we're directing them to. So in this case, we not only want to encode the customer ID, but also the document. And that's because the feedback is going to be so specific as they fill that out. So if we look at report embedded links, there are many reports that we can place it, but it's going to be a lower barrier to entry. You're going to get specific feedback about the process, and it's going to be real time. If we look at the other strategy, that was the post-activity surveys. And this is fantastic if you want general customer feedback. It is also influenced by external factors because it's not embedded in the work stream. So this link would likely be a separate email that comes days or sometimes a week or so after the interaction, depending on your business. And it can be influenced more by external factors because they're not actively engaging. The positive of the post-activity surveys is you get a more comprehensive view of how your customer is feeling about the partnership. In this scenario, if we look towards the bottom portion of the screen, I'm only embedding the customer ID inside of the URL because it will be more general, not to a specific activity or process. Regardless of which approach you take, there are some best practices. The first is it's sent timely. This is fantastic when it's embedded, as in our first example. But in the second example, you really want to follow up pretty quickly with any interaction that you have with the customer to make sure it's fresh in their mind. That will reduce the amount of external factors. But of course, in both scenarios, the goal is to have many of these interactions so you can start to build averages over time. The second is it's quick to complete. A customer is likely to only spend a few minutes on this survey at best. So you're looking at a maximum of about 5 questions. They should be yes, no style. They should be rating style, and then a comment down towards the bottom so they can spend a little bit longer if they want. On surveys, it's best to not make fields required because you end up forcing customers out of the survey process. So if they reach a question where they don't have an answer, it doesn't apply to them, or they simply do not want to answer, and then cannot move forward because you've made that question required, they're likely to close the survey and you're losing that valuable feedback. So quick to complete on these surveys. The next is specific. Right? And we want to make this process as painless as possible for our customers because many of you have heard me say feedback is the most valuable thing. It is, so we don't want to waste time covering areas that we already know. That goes back to the URL that I mentioned earlier, is we're providing that information for the customer and in some cases the specific document because the customer should not need to spend time doing that. The last is we need to follow up on this. right? Feedback is only good if we can action it, which we'll be talking about next, and then return to that customer and say, here's how we're going to change our process. This is most transparent about how you operate your organization. We all want to continually improve, and your customers want to work with someone that continually improves as well. So either feedback strategy we use, we want to make sure that it's sent timely, quick to complete, specific, and that we follow up. Most important. So we're through our first milestone of today. I know it was quick. I hope that you're about halfway through your cup of coffee like I am. But next we need to talk about corrective action. So with our survey information, we know what areas we need to work on and what we're focusing towards. Great news is you have Acumatica, or you're looking into Acumatica, and there are many order management tools. What we're going to focus on for today's example is late orders without communication, which is one of our most popular requests in terms of how we can help improve the process through Acumatica. Before we go on to the next slide, I want to look back and say you should make this process easy for your customers to provide feedback. You should also make it easy for your team to contribute towards this overall mission. And you should let them know what you're working towards. So in Acumatica, there is a feature called the column configurator, and it's in the upper left of any grid style screen. I'm pointing to it with the one icon right on the left-hand side of your page in blue. And when we click on that icon, it will open a window that allows us to determine the order of columns on our screen. So in this case, I'm highlighting the requested on field at the line level, and I'm pulling that all the way to the top of my list. And naturally, this will get more attention as we're entering orders. That's extremely important. Requested on is typically further to the right on your screen, and maybe even off the screen on the right-hand side, which means that as we're collecting orders, we're paying less attention to the requested on field. If we move that up in the list on the right-hand side of your screen, then we're going to see it more often, and we're more likely to fill out that field when creating an order. So I'm focusing on that request on field for this example, but this goes for any screen in Acumatica, anything that needs a little bit of extra attention. Sometimes we get into a routine of autopilot when we're filling out sales orders. So forcing the user to interact in a different way than they do all the time means we'll have more successful outcomes filling out information that we'll use later on. So again, requested on is a fantastic field to use an example here, but you can do this anywhere in Acumatica. If I close that window and look back at my screen, it's very atypical to have this requested on field in the third column when we're entering a sales order, and that will be noticed to my point earlier. So as we're completing this, we'll fill out the request on field. Now, what are we going to do with it? All right, we could send users emails every time we missed a delivery date. We could certainly have Acumatica's push notifications come up with the business event. But what I like to do is put this on a dashboard. Make this dashboard your home page, add some colors to your tiles, and draw the user in through interaction. So at the top of my customer view dashboard, in this case, I have a tile that's highlighted called late orders. And that tells me this is something that needs attention. And that's the section we're on right now, corrective actions. I can click and drill into a view that's pre-filtered. And it's pre-filtered on the requested on field is less than or equal to today, meaning that this order should be out and is not. So this is fantastic from an information ingestion point. But what are we going to do with that information? And this is something definitely to focus on after this call is, are you presenting information to the users or you're driving action? Because to drive action in this particular scenario, I want to make sure that I have contact information for these customers. Think back to the survey. We received survey that said our orders are late and we did not know about it. So we built the dashboard to show all of our late orders, and we're solving our customer feedback by saying, here's the email address that we need to reach out to. If you have a larger volume, it might not be feasible to reach out one-on-one, and we can employ Acumatica's tools to do this through automation scenarios. In this case, I just have an email template, and I want to tell the customer, we've noticed this, right? A human is looking at this for you. And it's okay to be playful like that. Work in your brand identity to your emails, make it enjoyable. And then this incorporates that element of follow-up. So you can do this in a manual way, going through the list, emailing the customers, or you can use something like email templates to reach out. Still very important to follow up, but you're keeping the customer informed in this way. So we've talked about what to track through surveys. We've talked about corrective action. We're recording the information. We're making it easy for anyone to record the information that we want to track. And then we're following up. We're following up on that interaction. The last step in this is preventive actions. We do not want to be chasing the ball all of the time. Let's get in front of it. Let's understand how we can change what our feedback is and continue to improve other areas of the business. So for preventive actions, we're going to always go towards that goal of customer satisfaction and strong partnerships. So this is when we have a dashboard that has a longer view. We're not looking at late orders today. We're looking at our on-time shipping ratio. So this is in the upper right. And this is telling us, are we meeting our goals? Are we meeting our goals? And in this case, you can see in the first month, we were high. We were getting that feedback that there were a lot of late orders. We did not have that effective communication. And then we're working our way. You can see the ladder step up, or we're having greater success. Greater success. So maybe it was a blip that we can address. Maybe it's a longer term problem, but that's why it's so important to have a corrective process that immediately starts to remedy the situation. And then longer term trends. So that way we can get different feedback and improve the business as a whole. If I drill in, we're using that same information that we did all the way back when we said we need to start collecting this easier. So we're using the order date, the requested on date, the actual ship date, and then we simply score ourselves. Was this on time or was it not on time? So it's very specific to the goal that we're trying to solve. So those are the three areas. And we just went through one example today of the late orders without communication, but pay attention to those surveys. Every organization is going to be solving different problems. It's heavily dependent on the industry, your products and services. So simply asking the customer, what could we be doing better, will give you some data and start to track that information. The second is corrective action, where we're saying we need tools to immediately start improving. If a customer provides feedback in a survey and does not see that you're making the effort towards resolving it, then they will not make the effort back towards you and continue to work with you as a partner. So you need to show that you're making the effort towards it. And then long-term improvements, that's in the preventive action state. You need to meet as a team, go through and say, this is what we're tracking. We want to be better at it. By the way, this is directly from our customers. This is important information to track. It's not information or data for data's sake. And then we monitor it month after month. It might take quite a while to solve, and you might start getting different feedback. But this is a virtuous cycle. This is a virtuous cycle where we might want to track different information over time and continue to improve on it stage by stage. So I know that was a lot to digest. Hopefully this is a framework for identifying some of those problems and having better customer outcomes for it. I'd love to open it up to Q&A. I'll pass it back to Lisa and see what we can help with.
That's great. Thanks, Robert. All right, just a reminder to put the questions in Q&A and we will answer them from there. Just wondering, Robert, are there any customer-focused metrics we can be tracking that don't require customer interaction through a survey?
It's a good question. I'm going to look back towards the first two quotes on the first slide. There's certainly some metrics we can track. A good one is customer reorders, frequency of orders, if we've had damaged deliveries or return rate. Those are all informations that does not require customer interaction, but it's certainly a balance. So just make sure that it's going towards the ultimate goal, but certainly you can do some analysis on the information that's already in the system. Allison has a good question in the chat here. Does updating the request on date at the line level update the header level date? It does not, but it does work in reverse. So if we update the header level date, the lines will all get updated. And then if you make any exceptions on the line level, those will remain. Any other questions for us this morning?
Thank you for the question, Allison. Any other questions? Helpful information, as always.
Fantastic. Well, it was a pleasure this morning. I hope that you're now through your cup of coffee. I hope this contributed to your morning wake up. And I'll thank you for joining Coffee with Crestwood.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good afternoon or good rest of the day.